A warm welcome to all the students, faculty members and our esteemed guests. I am Shruti Barve and I am honored to be your anchor for the budget event, Decoding the Budget 2024. The Honorable Finance Minister presented the Union Budget 2024 on 23rd of July. Today we are gathered here for this special event along with our esteemed guest speakers who will share their insights and their perspectives on what this budget means for all of us and its impact on our economy. Our distinguished speakers will delve into the key highlights, challenges and opportunities presented by the budget, provide us with valuable knowledge and throw light on what this budget means for our future. To formally commence our event now, it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Amitok. Dr. Amitok is the Chief Operations Officer of Vidyalanka Institute of Technology and Dean of Vidyalanka School of Management. In his role as the COO, he manages the operations of the institute, strategizes on the budgetary allocations, supervises the financial management and routine accounts, directs the student council activities and guides the team on budgeting and sponsorship, and also looks into the smooth execution of the department and institute events. With his rich and varied experience in the corporate world in training and mentoring roles, media and film finance and financial services marketing, he imparts many practical and result-oriented lessons in management to the students' community. I would now like to invite Dr. Amitok to deliver his opening address. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. I'll not take much of your time, but just to have a curtain raiser as such, I would like to put on records a couple of things, what we all expect from the panel. The Indian economy has been on a strong wicket and stable footing, demonstrating resilience in the face of geopolitical challenges. The Indian economy has consolidated its post-COVID recovery with policymakers, fiscal and monetary, ensuring economic and financial stability. Nonetheless, change is the only constant for a country with high growth aspirations. For the recovery to be sustained, there has to be heavy lifting on the domestic front because the environment has become extraordinarily difficult to reach agreements on key global issues such as trade, investment and climate. India's calibrated response to the pandemic on the economic front included three salient components. The first has been the focus on public spending on infrastructure, which kept the economy afloat by creating a strong demand for jobs and industrial output and triggered a lagged yet vigorous private investment response. Stronger balance sheets of the financial and non-financial private sector helped, aided by a decade of supporting initiatives by the government and the Reserve Bank of India. The second has been partly a natural response of business enterprise and public administration amidst advertised that is digitalization of service delivery. The public policy focus and nurturing of process and frameworks in digital technology greatly help this irreversible and transformational change. The third has been embodied in the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan in terms of targeted relief to different sectors of the economy and sections of the population, and structural reforms that assisted a firm recovery and increased the medium-term growth potential. The Honorable Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, presented the Indian budget for a record 7 times in a row on 23rd July 2024. The budget laid a roadmap for Vikasit Bharat, developed by 2047, while giving a glimpse of 10 years' performance. All eyes were set on whether Madam provides the much expected tax relief for the middle class, leaving more money in their hands as there is a tax Beyonce. Besides, the market also expected staying on the fiscal glide path to lower the fiscal deficit to 4.5% of GDP by 2025-26. She mentioned that with confidence arising from strong and exemplary track record of performance and progress, earning Sabka Vikas, the next 5 years will be of unprecedented development and golden moment to realize the dreams of developed India at 2047. The trinity of demography, democracy, and diversity backed by Sabka Prayas has the potential to fulfillment aspirations of every Indian, said she. In the interim budget, they promised to present a detailed roadmap for our pursuit of Vikasit Bharat. In the line with the strategy set out in the interim budget, this budget envisages sustained efforts on the following 9 priorities to generate opportunities for all: productivity, employment and scaling, resilience in agriculture. I think so. Rahul would be speaking more on that. Employment and skilling, inclusive human resource development and social justice, manufacturing and services, urban development, energy scrutiny, infrastructure, innovation and research and development, and next generation reforms. In the Union Budget speech, the Union Finance Minister made a groundbreaking move for startup ecosystem by abolishing the angel tax. This burdensome tax had been a major obstacle for genuine investors, in my opinion, hampering the rapid growth of startup investments. Its removal is a transformative step set to catapult India towards its goal of becoming the world's second largest startup ecosystem. We have eminent panel who can brainstorm on this and try to explain what exactly this means. Moreover, the government has unveiled rupees 1000 crore venture capital fund dedicated to the startups in the space of economy, which would be really something for you people to look forward for. At the next frontier of humanity, the space sector offers vast opportunities for innovation and exploration. With this substantial financial boost, startup founders can now fearlessly pursue pioneering advancement in the space economy. So, friends, to cut short and to hear from these eminent speakers, today at Vidyalankar, we have a panel of eminent experts who would make the budget very simple for common man's understanding and through their perspective for the benefits and understanding all of us present here. So on the behalf of the Vidyalankar Institute of Technology, I welcome all our eminent panel members and the moderators, and I wish we would have an enlightening evening ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amitok, sir, for your inspiring words. I am Jai Narendra Gungaokar, and it is my pleasure to now introduce our distinguished speakers to you. So, the first speaker of the day is CA Sanjeev Gokhale. Mr. Sanjeev Gokhale is a practicing CA and a prominent tax consultant for the last 33 years. His area of expertise are personal income tax, investment, and audit management. Mr. Gokhale completed his BCom, FCA, and graduate CWA in cost accountancy with an all India rank of 15 in the cost accountancy final exam. Mr. Gokhale has acted as a guest faculty in employer training programs for the state and central government on subject of taxation and investment. He has delivered speeches on different forums at various colleges, institutions, and charitable trusts on subject related to budget, tax, and GST. He is also a visiting professor for the college Kelkar for the last 20 years. Mr. Gokhale has a strong media presence. He has been doing taxation programs on ABP Maza Marathi news channel for the last 13 years in his show Paisa Jala Motha as an expert on income tax. He appears regularly as a subject matter expert on live shows on budget analysis as well as in interviews on taxation and on All India Radio and Doordarshan. His articles on income tax published every Monday in Maharashtra Times for the last 3 years. Welcome, Mr. Gokhale, sir. The second speaker of the day is Ashraf Engineer. Mr. Ashraf Engineer has the rare distinction of spanning both the news media and business spheres. He was a senior editor with leading media houses such as Times Group, Hindustan Times, and Sakhar Group and Midday for the almost 2 decades. In 2011, he was in Afghanistan training journalists on how to cover parliament. He later moved to the brand consulting spaces as VP, Insight at MCL Group, and then executive director at Pitchfork Partners. He is now head strategy at Idosphere Consulting. He advises national and multinational clients on brand communication and business strategy. However, he continues his journalism by writing for national and international dailies. He is also the founder and the host of the popular and multi-award winning podcast All India Matters. Welcome, Mr. Ashraf Engineer, sir. Third speaker of the day is Mr. Anand Sakle. Mr. Anand Sakle is a practicing chartered accountant, management consultant, corporate trainer, and educationist. Mr. Sakle is a fellow member of CA Institute and MBA from India Army's Faculty of Management Studies. He is an all India rank holder in CA intermediate exam. For the last 20 years, Mr. Sakle is teaching CA and MBA students. He is a visiting faculty to the Institute of Chartered Accountant in India and also Indian Institute of Banking and Finance as well as Management Studies. His passion for teaching has helped guide students from IIMs and international B schools. Mr. Sakle has also conducted various corporate training programs and even acted as a CEO coach. I welcome Mr. Sakle, sir. We, are, we also have Rahul Mirchandani, sir. Dr. Rahul Mirchandani is the chairman and managing director at Aris Agro Limited. Dr. Rahul Mirchandani has 30 plus experience as a director of Aris Agro Limited, awarded the CEO of 2024 and consistently ranked amongst the top 30 most innovative CEOs in India since 2014. He has pioneered several unique marketing processes and brand management activities at Aris. This include launching India's first loyalty program in agribusiness, India's first agribusiness flash sale, customer engagement programs for farmers and several shock and awe brand building programs to sustain and grow 130 brands with zero mass media advertising. Many of these strategies are being documented and taught as a case study in customer relationship management at leading Indian B schools. He holds a doctorate in management studies from NMIS University, Mumbai, and he is also a chartered financial analyst and holds an MBA degree from the University of Canberra, Australia. Rahul has discovered sessions on innovative and entrepreneurship at Oxford University, UK, and has lectured at over 50 B schools in India. He has also been elected for a second term as president of Indian Micro Fertilizer Manufacturer Association, the Apex Association, representing the interest of the micronutrients industry in India. In the past, he was the national chairman of the Confederation of Indian Industries Young Indians. He is also the recipient of the Bharat Ratna Rajiv Gandhi Yuva Shakti Award 2010 in recognition of outstanding achievements towards youth empowerment and inclusive growth. Dr. Rahul is listed in the Who's Who in the World 2013 and has been invited to reception of Buckingham Palace, the International Labour Organization, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meetings, High Commissioner banquets, Association of MBA Global Deans Conference, amongst other. Dr. Rahul is a Dr. Rahul is a fellow at Foresight class of Ananta Aspin Indian Leadership Initiative and member of Aspin Global Leadership Network. Welcome, Dr. Rahul Manchadani, sir. I now invite Dr. Amitok, sir, to facilitate our esteemed guests. Thank you, Dr. Amitok, sir. Now, I would like to request our respected moderator, Dr. Rahul Manchadani, sir, to begin a panel discussion. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and an absolute pleasure to be back here on campus after a very long time. So I think my job today has been made very easy because I've been given a very, very difficult question paper, which is set by, I think, all of you and your faculty. So my job, of course, is going to be to try and get as much out of this panel as possible. While we were discussing upstairs, one of them said, I want to do tax. Somebody said, I want to do entrepreneurship. Someone else said they wanted to do strategy. And I said, that's fantastic, because now you have all experts here who are going to talk to you and demystify this annual document that frankly creates more questions than it answers in most of our minds, and also is actually perhaps the document that sets out the economic policy direction for our country as a whole. Unfortunately or fortunately, many of us don't get into the nitty-gritties of the budget. Yes, taxes go up, taxes come down. There are a lot of issues that arise because of the various legislations that the document pulls out. So what we're trying to do today is to actually make it perhaps simple and easy to comprehend. Each of the panelists will speak for about 3 to 4 minutes initially on their opening remarks, after which I promise I will take as many of those questions that you guys have put out as possible. But I'm also going to ask many of you to ask questions towards the end of the panel. So be ready with your questions. As was given in that very long introduction, I'm an academic and a salesman, so I'll play the academic role and make sure that you ask the questions or we'll ask questions to you. Decide what you want. Okay, but the idea is to try and demystify the various nuances of this policy document. Many of you may not be finance experts, and that's fine. We will try to make it simple because the budget affects each and every one of us. It affects many sectors, and also perhaps is important for you to understand what you need to understand in order to look at the sectors that you perhaps want to work in, because many of the documents, many of the policies will actually trigger growth or degrowth in certain sectors. So I think you need to understand that from a jobs perspective as well. Okay, so let's take it one step at a time. At any point, if we've exceeded our brief, you can put your hand up and say, we've had enough of this topic. Let's move to the next one, and that's fine, because all of us tend to kind of love the sound of our own voices. Okay, so at any point, if we sort of exceed our brief, just remind us that you are the audience and you are the ones whom we are supposed to serve today. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move to our very first panelists, Mr. Sanjeev Gokhale. Would you, he said, he was the one who said, tax, 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 and tax. And so I think in terms of the direct or indirect tax proposals and any of the other inputs that he would like to provide as opening remarks, I'd like to invite Sanjeev to give out his statements, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. See, the tax is such a subject which ultimately everyone has to pay. There are two things which are very certain is this life, that is the debt and taxes. No one can escape any of these two. And therefore, if that is the reality, one must understand what the tax is. It's a very misconception among many of people that the taxes are very high in India. Uh, multiple taxes. No, it's not the case right now. Just give an example. In 1971, if you earn 100 rupees, you have to pay 94 rupees to the government of India in those days. In 1975, the rates were reduced from 94 rupees to 75 rupees. In 1997, they were further reduced to 30 rupees. Out of 100, you are required to pay. And now for first 10 lakhs of rupees, you have to pay only 5%. So from 94 to 5%, that's such a reduction in the taxation in India in the last 75 years we have seen. Now the question is why the taxes have gone down over a period of time? Because it was paid by the government ultimately that if the tax rates, if we make it reasonable, more people will come and pay voluntarily. Otherwise, there is always tendency to evade taxes, to not to pay the taxes, and people try to find out ways and means to evade the taxes, either legally or illegally. And therefore, if that is the case, the tax rates are now reasonable. The GST, as Rahul said, is not a part of this budget as such, because GST is determined and managed by the separate GST Council, the representative of all the states and the finance minister itself. And therefore, GST changes are not possible in this budget, but the roadmap or the likely part of the GST in near future can be discussed in the budget. So if you have any question about GST, you can ask. But in this budget, there is no scope as such. But direct tax and customs, yes, the custom duty has been reduced in certain cases where the finance minister felt that it was necessary in the interest of the government as well as the interest of those manufacturers like mobile phone, raw material, and so many other things. Direct taxes, since it was first budget after the election, and then the government is again elected for next 5 years. Everyone was expected that some relief will be available to a common man, like salaried people, like a common person. But unfortunately, not a great relief was given. There was a small relief given in the form of a standard deduction rights and little small changes in the tax rate. But still, as I told you, the rates have gone down over a period of time, and you have to now pay as little as tax as compared to earlier years. So with this, the budget has to be looked into from the taxation point of view. One more thing, in my opening remark, I would like to say that every one of you must know that the tax is one of the major source of revenue for the government. As we all require money, government also require money for various projects for government survival also, and the tax, either direct or indirect, is one of the source of the revenue to the government, and therefore it has to be paid by us as a matter of fact. There are certain rules which suggest that the taxes should be conveniently collected. These are known as canons of taxation, and the taxes should be such that which will not harm the people. It should be collected progressively, that those who have more ability should pay more, those who are poor should be left out. So considering these norms, normally the rules or the acts have been prepared, and if you would have heard the budget speech, Madam Speaker, Madam Finance Minister has guaranteed that this entire tax act will be reviewed in next 6 months. Many redundant, many old provisions which will absolutely not required at the moment, they will be removed. So probably with this review, we may find a much better law in the next budget, which will be in the 1st February 2025. So with this, my open comments, of course, it will be a very interesting talk with this, all the questions we can answer, and you will also get good enlightenment. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Right. Yeah, absolutely, Rahul. And it struck me. You said that we love the sound of our own voices. I mean, that's probably because nobody else listens to us. So we have no option. But I just wanted to start with a story. In 1994, I was a student at something called Vidyalankar classes in Dadar. In those days, those were classes. I don't think there was this campus in existence at that time. And this was just after the economic reforms of 1991. So we were in a state of, economic, I don't want to use the word euphoria, but there was a lot of hope and things were changing very rapidly. Satellite television had just come in. faxes were giving way to the internet and all sorts of things are happening. Cut to today, where I'm sitting here in this audience of the Vidyalankar campus, is a whole different world that we live in. At that time and this time, I think the similarity is one thing that stands out for me, which is the concern over jobs. Even in those days, I think there was a huge concern over, are there enough jobs out there? There weren't. Today, where India stands, we're adding 10 million entrants to the job market every single year. That's 1 crore. 10 million entrants to the job market every single year. So we have to create jobs and retain the jobs you created the previous year. Where are we today? I don't think that's really happening. And that's why this budget was extremely important in terms of what the finance minister is going to do in terms of jobs. Now, she actually had that on her mind too, because there's a lot in the budget as far as that is concerned. Skilling, for example, ITIs have been, kind of they have been reconfigured into a hub and spoke model to ensure that there's enough skilling so that the and out of the ITIs have enough jobs in industry and so on. Entrepreneurship has got a big boost. Infrastructure has got a big boost, so on and so forth. But it's extremely worrying because the data isn't really looking very good. Look at the live examples that we had before us. Just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, which 10,000, sorry, 1,800 people landed up for 10 vacancies at an engineering institute. In Mumbai, about 2 weeks ago, 25,000 people landed for 2,000 jobs at Air India. There was the danger of a stampede, and they had to kind of disperse the crowd. Many of these people were bachelor's and master's degree holders and had come from as far away as Buldana. Now, there is Citibank. There are 2 or 3 different data points, and in case anybody thinks I'm going to maybe don't worry the hope, and all that will come a little later. CMI last week released the report, Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy, released a study saying that unemployment for June was 9.2%. That's up from 7% in May. So in just 1 month, you've gone from 7% to 9.2%. Citigroup 3 weeks ago released a report saying that if India grows at even 7% consistently per annum over the next decade, it will create jobs. We won't do it. So we have to grow at least 8% to create those 10 million jobs that I'm talking about. But the data isn't good, like I said. I think the OECD is saying that we will not grow at more than 7%. The International Monetary Fund is saying we will not grow at more than 5.6%. So this budget is extremely important in terms of what we are going to do in terms of creating jobs. So what do we have? We have a strong focus on MSMEs. Credit is going to be easier. The limits have gone up. I think there's a credit guarantee scheme, which means it's going to be easier for MSMEs to get credit. We are, by the way, the highest employers in all of India. It's not the multinational corporations. It's not the large groups like Reliance or Tata. It's the MSMEs. And there's going to be a lot of focus on skilling. There's going to be a lot of focus on education, particularly women. There's got a strong focus on women's labor force participation because women's labor force participation has fallen drastically in India, right? I'll come to the numbers in a bit if once we have to, but I'm very happy to see the focus on MSMEs, the focus on entrepreneurship, the focus on skilling. Very happy to see the focus on infrastructure. There's a capital outlay, I think, Rahul, of 11,101 crore. Much of this is going to be on infrastructure, which means real jobs. So, by the time when inflation is extremely high, so, when you talk about higher standard tax deductions, you might think that you're getting more money in your pocket, but actually you are spending that much more just stay at the same place. Think of it as a treadmill on which you have to run faster and faster to stay in the same place, right? So there is a lot of that sort of thing going around. I think we should discuss that a little more during our panel. But the budget seems to have the right things on its mind. And that's the most important thing. Implementation, of course, is the key. So I'll stop here. We'll see by the panel.
At the outset, thank you and compliments to VIT School of Management team of its. So for organizing such a wonderful event, and compliments to you, Amit sir. First and foremost, at the very outset, I would just like to ask the audience, is everyone comfortable with English and Hindi? ठीक है ना? Okay. As the topic, decoding the union budget goes, first let me dwell with the basics.
an honest answer from all of you. First, one honest answer I would like to ask, because budget starts with a halwa party. So, how many of you know halwa party? Please raise your hands. Please raise your hands. How many of you are aware of the halwa party? Honest answer. Very few. So let me tell. See how the budget is prepared. You all are students, so let's stick to the basics first. See, policy document hai, sab kuch hai, agreed. But first, the halwa party. See, what happens is, finance minister prepares suji ka halwa on a lighter note, but it is a factual thing. Okay, कि वो हलवा बनाती हैं. One evening, there is suji ka halwa, shira, that is being prepared. After that halwa is prepared, all the team, finance ministry team, those who are involved in budget preparation are quarantined. It is almost 15 days ahead of the budget. 15 दिन पहले almost this activity happens. Proper halwa banate hain. Some of you must have read it in the newspaper. She was just रवा ये कर रही थी, बड़ी बड़ी वाली कढ़ाई में बना रही थी. They are quarantined just to ensure that budget ka confidentiality is maintained. They don't have mobile phones with them. They are fully quarantined from the world, and they go home, they come out only after the budget is tabled in the Lok Sabha. Because the confidentiality of this budget is supreme, it is paramount. Even a single budget provision, if it is leaked, it can have an implication in the stock market, capital market, and many other things there will be lots and lots of repercussions. Let's not dwell on that. So the first thing that I would like to tell you is, it's not an easy task to prepare India ka budget. It's such a big country with 140 crore people. And here the budget is being prepared for the Consolidated Fund of India. It's a union budget. So what happens here is, first and foremost is the economic survey, which comes a day prior to the budget. I think the economic survey is a document which gives us a more insight than the budget. Budget gives you a roadmap, but the survey is the base on which the roadmap is coming out. So whenever you people want to decipher and you want to know the budget, you should always look at the economic survey ka highlight first and then go into the budget. That is the ideal thing. And students are out here, so they need to know certain more things. It is Finance Bill 2024. First, the bill is presented in the parliament. Then it gets approved in the parliament, and the day President of India signs it, it becomes act. So when we are decoding the budget, let's understand from the basic, because students should know the basics, the step-by-step approach. So right now, the first step is done. The bill has been tabled in the parliament. Now there will be a discussion, and I am told it is going to be for 20 odd hours. 20 घंटे में इतना बड़ा बजट पास होने वाला है. Now थोड़ा सा हिस्ट्री में भी जाएंगे हम लोग. Vajpayee was in power, Mr. Vajpayee, our Prime Minister, in 1996. Till then, the budget was being presented on February 28th. And that too in the evenings, it used to be presented. Why? क्यों? किस लिए? तो at that time it was around 11 o'clock in UK. The budget was being presented to the Queen. Means that mindset, colonial mindset was there with the budget till almost 40 years of our independence. Mr. Vajpayee said nothing doing, इसको 11 बजे कर देने का है. We should make it 11 o'clock. The budget was presented then at 11 o'clock because we wanted to come out of the colonial mindset. And then came Arun Jaitley, Modi government, gradually. The problem with the budget was after being presented on 28th of February, Parliament used to discuss, it used to take a long time, then President used to sign. कभी 12 अप्रैल को साइन करे, कभी 15 अप्रैल को साइन करे. गोखले सर जैसे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स used to be under pressure from which day the provisions are applicable. Mr. Jaitley said this is not done. There should be some kind of uniformity whereby all my budgetary provisions should become applicable from the first day. So, from 1st April onwards, the budgetary provisions, most of them will come into picture. So, this is for the students. As far as this budget is concerned, as fellow panelists have said, it is a roadmap. Obviously, it is giving us a direction for coming 5 years, and next 2047, it is giving a vision for Vikasit Bharat. But then there are lots of challenges which we will discuss during the course, and you also can interact then. See, the first and foremost challenge to any finance minister in India, even if you become the finance minister or any of us become the finance minister, the biggest challenge that is always there is the crude oil price. Because we are dependent on crude. Today also we are Russia against all NATO countries का wrath. We have invited it because at the end वहां से सस्ता मिल रहा है. Our major outflow, foreign exchange outflow, is always on account of crude oil. Balance of trade, whatever economics teacher must have taught you, is always stated just because of this crude. Just because we are not focused to green energy and other things, the dependability on the biofuel will come down. So let's hope for that. World economy, US elections, Ukraine prices, dollar prices, all these are the ones which are going to affect the finance minister's decision making. Dollar ka price, world's economic scenario, it is not an encouraging thing. And we need not be apologetic about 7% growth rate. It is quite decent, it is quite good. Last but not the least, I would just like to draw a small inference, if time permits, for 1 minute more. Basic comparison between Indian economy and US economy. In India, friends, we were always having savings in mind. In US, it was spending. Now, slowly we are moving towards that consumption economy, spending economy. US was always spending. An average US citizen has 5 loans on his head. 5 loans. Starting with education loan, followed by car loan, house loan, marriage loan, and finally credit card. So there are 5 loans on the head of a US guy. So in India, we don't have, we say loan lena soch samajh ke lena, means that spending economy is not there in India, which we are trying to move towards, but be careful with that. That is one thing. Second comparison with US and Indian economy is the unemployed part, employment, as Ashraf said. Regarding the employment part, in US, there used to be an unemployment allowance. In India, kitna bhi kuch ho, a guy who doesn't have a job, घर वाले उसको फीड करेंगे, गाली देके फीड करेंगे, बोलेंगे मुफ्त की रोटी खा रहा है, लेकिन घर वाले संभाल लेते हैं. तो बर्डन ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट इज फैमिली इन इंडिया. whereas it is on the exchequer in US. That's why US has 50% plus tax. Last but not the least, the social security regarding senior citizens. Here, all senior citizens are well looked after by the families. Let us understand. You will not let your old age parents go. Family takes care of old age people. But it is a burden on the exchequer, the healthcare. Gradually, we are moving towards that. How much we can sustain, time will tell. But it has to be done cautiously. So, because we are high number economy, third number in the world, gradually by 2047, perhaps number one in the world, we will lead the world. But then it comes with challenges, which we will discuss as a panelist and as an audience. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all the panelists for their opening remarks. And now we're going to open up with a lot of questions and we're going to fire up this stage with some detailed discussions. But first question, I think none of the panelists mentioned in their opening remarks, I think is on perhaps all your minds, especially of any of you who invest in the stock market. How many of you do the time pass on the stock market daily? Awad Jawat, invest here, invest there. How many of you invest in the in equity? Come on, you can be honest about it. I know a lot of you do. Okay, fair enough. So at least half of this audience does. And one of the biggest provisions that did come up in this budget, in fact, in the tax provisions, was the capital gains tax. And the capital gains tax has been increased on both long-term and short-term capital gains, and definitely will have an impact on the net earnings of any of you who invest in the stock market. So if you were investing X amount of money and you were gaining in that transaction, then based on the period of the investment, you were incurring, you were liable to pay a short-term or a long-term capital gains tax. Both of these have been increased. So the long-term capital gains tax and the short-term capital gains tax have both gone up, which means if you earn 100 rupees and you were earlier supposed to pay a 10% tax, you are now paying a 12.5% tax. So your net earnings from that transaction have reduced. Now, definitely the investment appetite, you need to make much more profit in order for that transaction to be viable or attractive to you as an investor. So my first question to any of the panelists, and perhaps I'll ask Ashraf this question because he wanted to talk on investments and entrepreneurship, and then I'll come to you on the tax implications of it. What, according to you, Ashraf, would be the implication on the investment appetite and the kind of the habit of people investing in the markets?
Yeah, I think, is this working? Is working, right? Right. So I think I think we should look at it in the we should take into account both the short-term capital gains tax as well as the long-term capital gains tax because they work in tandem. Why is the short-term capital gains tax increased rather? It's to ensure that people are not speculating as much, right? They're going to stay locked into the investments for a longer period of time, which reduces volatility on the markets. Right, so that's the primary gain, and also you gain because investments mature, in fact, gain more over the long term rather than the short term, right? As far as the long term increase is concerned, in plain and simple words, you get less on your investment. So when you actually break your investment, you're going to make less money than you would have done yesterday or before the budget provisions have come into into effect. So I would say, I mean, I don't know whether that's really going to impact the savings appetite because I think Indians culturally look to save. Yeah. No matter what the return is. So in the days of which I think was a very unfairly called Hindu rate of growth, people still look to save as much as possible. And today, when we are at 6%, 7%, 8% of growth, and our savings tend to grow at 12, 13, 15%, something in that range. We still want to save as much as possible because kal kisne dekha hai. So I don't think it's going to affect the appetite. Certainly your returns over the longer term are going to be less.
Yeah, but the volatility is going to be controlled.
It is going to come down.
So in terms of de-risking, do you feel it is something that is, obviously with reduced volatility, you have reduced relatively lower risk because your risk capital, sort of risk stability ensures in the market. Do you think stability will ensure that people will invest more in the long term?
I think so. I think people will invest anyway in the long term. But what I would is that I don't think the increase in short term capital gains is what is going to spur more savings. I think anyway. Exactly. That's my point. I think, yeah, volatility will come down so you can feel that you're secure. At the same time, I mean, whenever you make your investment, you're going to get slightly less. So it's a trade-off that you have.
No, I think one point I definitely want to make, and I'm going to move to the tax expert here, is that don't plan your investment based on the tax. And don't, I mean, ultimately, if you're getting the privilege of being living in this country and everything that comes along with it, good, bad, indifferent, I think what we need to understand is that there's a tax. And don't plan your investment based on a tax. You plan based on what its return is going to be.
I can just make one quick point. Yeah, I think this is an extremely important point that Rahul is making because we are in a country that doesn't have social security. So, once you hit 60 or 65, whatever the, age is in other countries, you don't get an automatic government pension. So you have to stay invested. You have to invest no matter what. It shouldn't matter what the tax rate is.
Exactly. And I'd like to know the tax implications of this. I mean, if there's any specific input you would like to give.
See, first of all, the tax rate is the purpose behind it is to make a simplification. Madam's Finance Minister specifically said that we want to simplify the tax. Earlier, there were capital gain taxes of 10%, 20%, different rates, different time period for which the asset was required to be held. Now, since we are moving to simplification, what has happened? She said the long-term capital gains on equity shares after 12 months of the period of holding will be increased from 10 to 12.5%, as both of us just discussed. But you have ignored that in case of other assets other than equity, the long-term capital gain tax was 20%. It has gone down to 12.5%. So just because now we are focusing on equity, yes, there is a small increase of 2.5. But because we are making simplification, there are reduction in the taxes as far as long-term capital gain from 20 to 12.5. That is one point. Point two, short-term capital gain tax. Yes, Ashrafi rightly said it may lead to little less volatility or people will have to pay more for the taxes if they are earned in short duration. But again, thereafter, what we discuss is about the saving habit. See, we are getting almost 20,000 crore every month by way of SIP. People have started saving on their own. And since the market is the only place where the returns are much better than any other asset class. Therefore, if you are getting 15-16% return in the market over a period of time, and the other returns are much lesser, it will not harm that 5% increase. And again, I am saying that there also is the simplification. Some other short-term gains also will have 20%. So simplicity in the taxes. With this, I would say that it will be a sustained practice that 12.5% and 20%. So that will also make the people to plan their taxes or taxation for a longer run. But it will not change. I hope it will not change over a period of time. And with this, the finance minister said that we want to simplify. One more reason why long-term capital gain was increased, the revenue secretary gave the answer in the interview thereafter, that they have observed that out of the total tax collection of long-term capital gain in the last few years, the maximum 80% of the taxes were paid by those people who had an income more than 15 lakhs. So long-term capital gain is actually being paid by people who are rich or little more than 15 lakhs. And therefore, they will not be mindful if the tax rate has gone up from 10 to 12% for the simplicity reason, for making the tax law simple. So who will be affected? Those who are earning more than 15 lakhs. Those who are earning less than 15 lakhs are very less in number. They will pay long-term capital gain tax. One more last point is that there is an exemption of 1 lakh rupees per year where you are not to pay any tax even on that long-term capital gain tax on capital gains of some shares. That 1 lakh exemption has been raised to 1.25, 1,25,000. So corresponding change has also been made for those who may suffer from this 2.5% increase. So it is not that only increase in one way. There is also corresponding exemption which has increased. So typically middle class, those who earn money out of long-term capital gain, they can plan their selling in such a manner that they get the full benefit of that 1.25. Of course, if anything more, of course, they have to pay 2.5% more tax. But when you earn more, you should be ready to pay more tax. So these are the things which were not exclusively discussed by the media. I have seen it was not discussed. They see only the one thing. वो 2.5 से बढ़ा दिया, लेकिन क्यों बढ़ा दिया? कहाँ 20 से कम ही हुआ है, वो उसके ऊपर स्ट्रेस नहीं दिया, सिर्फ बढ़ने का हमको दिखता है. तो that should also be taken into account. By doing this, we are making a law simple, easy calculation. That's why this 2.5 increase was justified, in my opinion.
I think very excellent input in terms of the fact that the smaller investor who was really only 19% of the total is actually also getting the same to an actually get a higher exemption limit and can therefore profit to 1.25 lakhs, and anyone earning more than that obviously pays the higher rate. Since Mr. Anand, you were talking about the history and evolution of the budget, I wanted to talk to you a little bit on the ask you a question on the evolution of what we used to call, and I remember very clearly the word tax terrorism, moving on to the word used in the budget this time multiple times, tax certainty. We are moving an entire sort of spectrum from the highly uncertain, almost extortionist mindset of the tax officers to saying that no, Vivad se Vishwas, resolve your disputes, finish it once and for all, and get certain in the kind of outcome. What would be your implication on this entire spectrum that we seem to have sort of traveled through?
The point is, he is asking tax terrorism that is typically to the business world, not to the person who is into the salary sector. And in business world also, the people are especially looking at the foreign direct institutional investors and foreign direct investments. The people who are coming from abroad want more certainty with respect to taxation. That economic reform was done, GST was one step in that direction, no doubt about it. But the thing is, certainty, if it is there, then the calculations can be done while entering into the world of business, that entrepreneurship will grow. People will not be afraid of doing the business. If compliance का burden रहेगा, तो there is always going to be what he said, tax terrorism and the fear. There is always that fear. Business करने के लिए that fear has to go. That ease of doing the business is connected to simplification of tax. It is connected. All these dots are to be connected and seen together. Thereby, we will come to know that once you have proper certainty with respect to tax regime, and as sir rightly said, new laws coming up which will bring much more much needed transparency into the tax structure and tax certainty. And once that comes in, so 5 trillion economy can be achieved. So it is basically the fear has to go away from the world of business. The business people should be fearless when they come to the business. I will just last touch upon this. Ease of doing business when we are talking about also includes exit route. If you incur losses tomorrow, so you should have easy exit route, and there are provisions in this budget which we will develop upon later on.
Okay. I think another interesting provision that came in, I think Ashraf, I'm going to direct this question to you, and you're welcome to comment on the tax part as well, is the angel tax, since you want to talk about startups and entrepreneurship. I know many of you are aware of what the angel tax is. The angel tax very clearly is supposing a foreign investor would like to invest in your firm, and the book value or fair value of your firm is X, but they invest at X plus something. Then on that differential, there was a tax put on them. The idea was that they were paying more than the fair value of your of the asset that they were buying. That angel tax was supposed to kind of restrict people, investing money for the sake of the name of a startup, but frankly, it was unaccounted money that was coming in, and that was the purpose of that angel tax. Now, this has been completely removed because the real investors were kind of getting dissuaded of coming in. Now that the angel tax is gone, what according to you, Ashraf, would be the impact on the startup ecosystem, and how can entrepreneurs actually tap now the world of finance, which is now open to them?
A couple of things, Rahul. First of all, I think any removal of such a tax eases the investment of money into startups. Right. So I think this is critically important to this audience because many of you might be dreaming of having your own startup at some stage once you graduate. So it becomes easier for you to attract investment. That's the first part of it. Second part of it, like you said, is the quality of that investment. Who are the people and what is the money that is coming in? So that becomes a lot, I think, now simpler and cleaner. Let's put it that way. And I'm allowed to use the word sexy. The sexiest part of this is that valuations are going to rise. So, the dissuasion that you had, investing money is gone to whatever extent. So, you can expect valuations to rise higher because of the angel tax. So that's also, I can just touch upon the tax bit a bit. I think that's a very important point of it is, tax certainty versus tax uncertainty. What are the numbers, as of March 2020, the last I checked, more than 1 lakh crore rupees were blocked in direct tax litigation in our courts and tribunals and so on. So to some, the budget measures to reduce tax uncertainty and disputes are extremely welcome. The assessments can be reopened beyond 3 years from the end of the assessment year only if the escaped income is 50 lakh or above, and for a maximum period of 5 years. In such cases, there's a time limit of 6 years before the search was being announced. So these are all good things. It means that there will be less harassment of, largely business people. So, just to add to what Sir said.
Now coming on, this was more on the domestic front. I'd like to now talk on the export-import front. I think there was a bit of a talk on balance of trade and things like that. Now, when we look at the export-import front, I think one of the biggest fears that the world has if India de-dollarizes, and we've already started doing that with the oil trade, for instance, where we now trade in the ruble. The rupee-ruble trade was perhaps one of the biggest indicators to the world that India will secure its own interests and energy security, no matter what wars are running around the world. Of course, when de-dollarization takes place, and many of you must understand the US economy is in doldrums, but if the US currency is increasing, it's not because of demand for US goods and services, but because of demand for the currency, which is the US dollar. Now, considering that the demand supply of the US dollar can get completely skewed if large countries like India de-dollarize, and there was a mention in this budget as well about trading in the Indian rupee for certain key areas of trade. I'd like to ask you, Sanjeev, if you have your comments on de-dollarization, or anyone would like to comment on de-dollarization, because I think it's one of the key threats that the world has with India, and one of the biggest opportunities for India is to kind of use your currency as the method of exchange and not be dependent on other reserve currencies. And guys, if you are using terms that perhaps are going a bit over your head, please do let us know, because we assume that there are certain terms you understand. I'm very happy to demystify them, make them very simple, but please ask the question if you don't understand any of the terms that we're talking about. Yeah.
Our story goes back to 1991. De-dollarization, when he is saying the story should be understood in proper spirit, we have to go back. If you have seen a movie called Airlift, if you have seen that movie, that was purely 1890 in that year, when it was Kuwait war. Iraq and Kuwait were at war. And we didn't have oil. And our economy was in shambles. India had to pledge gold to get the dollars. Actually, physically प्लेन में गोल्ड रख के लेके गए थे, गिरवी रखना पड़ा था. It was such a pathetic scenario. We had foreign exchange reserves which were going to last only for 1 week. Then came economic liberalization, जो आपने कॉलेज में पढ़ा रहेगा, 1991 by Dr. Manmohan Singh. That's why he was always acclaimed to be a great finance minister. He was criticized as the prime minister, but as a finance minister, he had done exceptionally good job under P.V. Narasimha Rao. From then onwards, Indian economy started liberalizing, and we have all private sector banks and so on and so forth. Gradually, we have matured as a country. Today, even the UAE, one of our friends, they are ready to accept rupee and give us oil. Ruble also is traded with rupee. And thereby, as Rahul sir rightly said, that de-dollarization, global dependency on dollar, if it comes down, it is going to be a risk to America, and it is going to throw an opportunity to Indians, because Indian rupee will become stronger. Somewhere around 1900s, it was 1 rupee is equal to $13. When we became independent, it was 1947, 1 rupee, $1. And today it is $1, which is 80 plus. So there is a risk. Foreign exchange risk management is a big area, which some of you who are doing India finance may be aware of. But the fact of the matter, as Mr. Mirchandani rightly said, that de-dollarization is going to throw a good opportunity to we Indians. How? Time will tell us, for sure. But we should be ready to grab those opportunities as and when they come our way.
In fact, I must mention to all of you that, the fact that the Indian rupee is now getting much more widely accepted is because of the fact that you are an ocean of calm in the chaos that is in the global economic environment. Frankly, no matter what chaos we all face on a day-to-day basis, just go outside and look at the world and it's depressing. Compared to that, we are an ocean of calm and opportunity, and that is why the Indian rupee has now starting to get much more accepted. I mean, I don't get a ridiculous exchange rate when you go abroad and use the Indian rupee at stores, at airports, but I just love to do that just because I can. A few years ago, I've lived in a world where we never could, whereas now you take the rupee, you can exchange it anywhere in the world at an airport. It's a phenomenally great feeling because it's now a convertible currency. But please understand the opportunities that this does. Also for the fact that if you trade in the rupee, you automatically hedge your forex risk, because you no longer have to convert your currency. And I think the de-hedging is a cost. I mean, hedging is a cost. Now, if you hedge, there is a hedging premium that you are paying. And if that is avoided, that itself increases your margins to the extent of that hedging risk. So I think that's something that you must understand and appreciate as a benefit of de-dollarization. Now, what I also want to talk about, I think, was now coming on the export front. We all love our gold. I don't think there's any Indian household that doesn't love its gold. And no matter where you are and which part of the country you are, the gold and silver is like the ghar ki total, the puri shaan ho jati hai wo. Okay. And now this particular budget has changed the customs duties on gold, और जो हम दुबई जाके पॉकेट में भर भर के लेके आते थे, because the gold souk there was giving gold slightly cheaper. We certainly believe that the government realizes that frankly this is all happening, and they have reduced the customs duty on gold. And I'd like to ask you the question on the impact of the customs duties changes on bullion, which is perhaps one of the biggest asset classes for many of us, our households, is we store money not in currency or in the banks, but we store it in the form of bullion. So how does that go?
Actually, the same question was asked to finance minister after the budget speech by one of the person. She did not answer. Her secretary answered, but there were 50 lakhs employees in the business of gold in India, and the rate of custom duties were quite high. And whenever any tax rates are high, people try to bring it by smuggling and all this. If you know, the smuggling was very, very common since. And thereafter, when you realize that you reduce the custom duties for gold, Thereafter, it was further increased. So, in order to not only help those 50 lakhs employees in the various uh, business of gold, that is one reason why the custom duty has been reduced. That is what the secretary said. But apart from that, as Rahulji asked the same similar question, what will be the impact? Since the now gold definitely because the custom duty has gone down, the import of the gold will be, of course, have less cost, and anything depending on the gold will be available at a lesser cost. So definitely, it will be better. But in my personal opinion, this is what, of course, stated by the finance ministry. But my personal opinion, when you buy gold, you have to pay foreign exchange because India is importing gold, we cannot manufacture gold as per the requirement of our country. So when you pay foreign exchange, definitely you are spending precious foreign exchange for import of gold. And that's why nowadays, I'm teaching in a college, I tell to my student that when you ultimately will start earning and want to buy gold, buy it in a digital form rather than actual physical form. But of course, as in India, we have that special treatment for gold during marriages and during various occasions, without which Indian women cannot be, but without the gold. And therefore, certain gold is required. And if that has gone down, that price has gone down, or in custom duty has gone down, not only the manufacturers, where the gold is used as a raw material for certain other industries, even they will be benefited, and the ordinary customer definitely will be benefited. So that can be the impact by a reduction of custom duty. But in my personal opinion, buying the gold, of course, is at the loss of my national foreign exchange. So when we buy, that is at extreme necessity only buy that. Otherwise, if you want to buy the gold for investment, always the digital gold or sovereign gold bonds are the best. That will give you 2.5% interest. After 8 years, when you get back your money, you will get the rate of market rate. So as if you are holding the gold for 8 years without paying a banker or locker rent, ultimately safe. And when you get back the money, with appreciation, there is no capital gain tax. So always, as an investor, you buy a gold in digital form. As a housewife, of course, you can definitely say your husband, buy a gold now. It has been cheaper now.
Like to add one point. One point I would like to add, sovereign gold bonds. Actually, gold का प्राइस इस साल कम होना ही था. The reason is simple because next year they are due for redemption. Because the sovereign gold bonds are due for redemption, there is going to be a humongous cash outflow for the government next year. So अगर gold का प्राइस बढ़ गया तो then government will be in trouble. So government will be possible means to ensure that gold prices this year come down because next year is the year of redemption for these gold bonds.
So let's now move to the next area apart from gold now, MSMEs. To move another area. I think MSMEs are a nature, and I think Ashraf, I'm going to direct that to you since MSMEs I think are getting a good push. I think the ministry has been quite proactive. But there are also certain policies that actually have been going in the reverse directions. For instance, they're forcing us to pay MSMEs in 45 days. I mean, I know I had to clear, horrendous amount of MSMEs, which we managed to do because we had the cash flow for it. But many MSMEs, surprisingly, actually said we are canceling our registration because हमारा business ही बंद हो जाएगा because nobody will buy from us. So a lot of policies actually are quite good on paper. But how do you feel? Which are the policies, according to you, in this budget where MSMEs have been benefited and where perhaps it looks good on paper but perhaps needs a rethink?
Yeah, I think as far as the benefit is concerned, Mudra loans is probably the most important benefit. So what is happening is that the limit has been raised to 20 lakh. So that's the first part of it. So MSMEs have more access to credit. The second part of it is that there is a credit guarantee scheme by the government for MSME loans. So which means that the MSMEs don't have to put up collateral or third-party guarantees in order to get that credit. And so it becomes easier. So that's the most beneficial part. Like I said earlier, MSMEs actually generate the most employment in this country. So that's also related to jobs, by the way. On
The guarantee which he is saying it is for 100 crore.
Yeah, that's the total of, yeah, exactly right. For loans of up to 100 crores, so how many, that much loan, I don't know, but if you're an MSME, if you need 100 crores of loans, but anyway, it's up to 100 crores, so it doesn't mean you have to take 100 crores. So that's the best part of it. I think this whole 45-day where did it come from? It came actually from, I think, from the COVID-19 pandemic effect, where because of the lockdown, sudden lockdown, people could no longer work, large businesses could handle that, but it's the MSMEs actually that suffered the most. And we were that if MSME shutdowns happened. Now, when the lockdown was lifted, these guys needed to make up for lost ground, and there are many ways you do that, of course. But one of the ways is to ensure cash flow. And which is where I think that whole 45-day limit came in from. It doesn't always make sense, like you said. I don't know, maybe the water would work out, something like that. But it doesn't always work in that way. Sometimes you need longer, payback times.
I want to have a question on, I think I'm going to come to you, the tax related provisions. I think one of the things guys must have read is indexation removal. So I think there was a discussion about the fact that when you are actually computing tax, there is an indexation provision where you have to sort of, adjust the base rate based on the index. So could you justify indexation for this audience? How the provisions benefit them?
Yes, while calculating long-term capital gains other than shares. Like for example, I bought my house somewhere in 2001 for say 10 lakhs rupees. And now the prices have gone up. I want to sell the house in Mumbai at 1 crore rupees. Easily the price are in that line, more than 1 crore, but let's take a simple example. So really what I invested in 2001 is 10 lakhs. And now I'm earning 1 crore. So 90 lakhs is my clear benefit. Is my profit. That is what is called as a long-term capital gain as far as taxation is concerned. The law was that on this long-term capital gain, 20% tax was there. Now, since we are moving towards simplification, as I said earlier, the 20% tax will go down to 12.5. So the question is now how it should be taken. In earlier days, 20% was not 90 lakhs. Example, even though I have earned 90 lakhs over a period of say 20 years on my 10 lakhs rupees because prices of flats have gone up, the tax was not 20% on 90 lakhs. Some indexation benefit was given. What was the indexation benefit? It was very simple to understand. What was available for 10 lakhs in 2001, that available, my flat also was there, which was available. Because of inflation, now I have to pay much more for a similar product, for like a basket. जिसके लिए मैं 10 लाख रुपए देता था 2001 में, अभी 2024 में 10 लाख में काम किया. I will have to pay more. How much? That is calculated by wholesale price index, and the government calculates that, and every year publishes. So now, as per the published WIP, wholesale price index, it says that what was available for 110 lakhs, now 36 lakhs are required to be paid. So the calculation of capital gain tax was such that, okay, 36 lakhs as such also, the prices would have gone up. So you want to, because inflation has really gone up, so 36 lakhs would have been a real price. Now you will have to pay. But because you are getting much more, 36 lakhs, in my example, almost 1 crore, the difference of almost 64 lakhs is your real gain. So my real gain is not 90 lakhs, even though in calculation, mathematical calculation, it looks like 90 lakhs. My real gain is 64 lakhs. Why? तो 10 लाख का जो वैल्यू था 36 लाख देना पड़ता है उसके लिए. तो आई एम नॉट गेटिंग 90 lakhs in real sense. So taxation provisions for 1 crore minus 36 lakhs, 64 lakhs was taxed at 20%. So 64 into 20, almost 30 lakhs I have to pay tax if I'm paying the tax for in that transaction. Now the law says we are simplifying. So the rate has gone down to 12.5%. And the calculation, that indexation is now removed. So now the calculation is simple. 1 crore minus 10 lakhs, 90 lakhs, instead of 20% pay 12.5 lakhs. So it is less than 13 lakhs. So actually, where the gain is much more, rather more than inflation, I am benefited by the new provision. Whereas if my gain is not much more than the inflation, like my clients bought properties in Pune at around 2013-14, the same prices they are selling now because they say there are so much of the property available. There is a gestation and therefore now no one is buying my property at a higher price. So they will be at loss. Why? Because now indexation benefit is gone. The sale price minus cost price hardly any difference. And therefore indexation was allowing them to claim loss also. Now that loss has gone. But for those who have really earned good, more than the inflation rate, their tax rates have gone down. Actually, for them, it is widely published now in media that something very wrong has been done by removing indexation. That is not the case. Where you are earning better by putting your money in a better giving return giving assets, you will be paying lesser taxes than the earlier regime, earlier before budget dates. So this is what a misconception among even if you go to YouTube and just say indexation budget. No, all will say that something bad has happened. No, not in every case. Of course, bad has happened for where your returns are less as compared to inflation. If the returns are good, your taxes are saved. So in turn, rewarding a good return by reducing tax. But again, I say this has happened not because minister wanted to reduce it or increase it. It has happened because simplification. Simplification was the main aim. While doing so, simplifying, somebody will benefit, somebody will not. So we have to go with that. After a few years, of course, we'll feel that, yes, it's very easy to calculate tax. Indexation was difficult because we have to find out the index of buying, and there was a lot of litigation. I booked the flat in 2001. I actually got a possession in 2004. So which index to be taken? Some courts will say 2001. Some courts will say no. So a lot of litigations and problems or controversies were there. Now such controversies are absolutely will not be there. Calculation can be done by even a person who is Pachvi pass. So it is such easy, and for simplicity, as she rightly said, Madam Finance Minister, that we are moving towards simplicity of making income tax simple, even new tax regime, removal of this indexation, all those are pointing out towards increase in long-term, short-term capital gain. They are pointing out towards simple income tax regime. Ultimately, they want to instill in India. So that is a good thing. Of course, for some, there will be some higher tax they will have to pay by removing that indexation.
I want to now ask the final question from my side before we open it up to the audience, and which is the sectors which have perhaps got the most benefit or the most impacted. And while you were having opening remarks, I heard three sectors, and I'm going to add a fourth one. I heard infrastructure, I heard education, I heard women labor force, and I'm going to add artificial intelligence and digital, because that was sort of in a lot of the policy statements as well. So if I want to ask all the three panelists on your one choice, if I had to pick one sector which was perhaps the most positively impacted by this budget, would you name that and tell us why that was a positive impact? Because it's also important for these students who are looking at potential sectors to look at is which sectors are actually going to get triggered in the next couple of years because of these various policy initiatives by the government.
A bit difficult to answer, but the point is 11.5 crore jobs are to come up by 2030. So it is a job oriented, employment oriented budget. So all those companies which are into labor intensive are going to get benefited. Wherever employment generate होने वाला तो that is a place. Say if I am going to start a stock broking business on my own, I am not going to employ anybody. So it's not a labor intensive, it is a place where it's capital intensive. So I'm not going to get benefited. All those sectors where labor intensive growth is there, that is the one which is going to get benefited. So obviously it has to be manufacturing sector, it has to be the agri sector. It cannot, and obviously the Indian service sector, and Rahul rightly said, artificial intelligence, it's going to throw a big area. For all the youngsters sitting out here, come next year, we will be having data privacy law in place, in addition to artificial intelligence. A big area of career awaits you who are interested in cyber security and data privacy, data protection. Because in UK and US and also European Union, we have general data privacy regulation, GDPR, which is there. So wherever the new areas are there, they are going to throw a plethora of opportunities. So it is definitely going to be a place where it's labor intensive. If it is a labor intensive business, it's going to be benefited.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's a employment oriented budget. So any sector that needs to hire people is going to be effective. We haven't actually talked about the employment benefits that both first-time employees and also employers are going to get. So I can't remember the exact amount that if you're a first-time employee and if you are part of the EPFO, the Employment Providence Fund organization, then you get, I think, what, 50 maximum of 15,000 rupees benefit per month, is it? Per month. Whereas employers get 3,000 rupees back from the government for the employer, provident fund contributions. So that's a for 2 years, yeah. So, I mean, so that's a big incentive to hire people. So again, just coming back to what you said, any industry, especially manufacturing MSMEs that need to hire a lot of people are certainly going to benefit. There was another question. I think you mentioned digitization. AI and digital. So as far as AI is concerned, my view on that is I think we are at a very early stage of AI, and probably the service industries are going to employ it first. So banking, for example, is one of them, where you're going to see initial uses of AI. I think all of you, if you tried out chatbots on banking tools, then that's a lot of AI at work. On digitization, actually, there's an interesting thing on digitization that we haven't talked about, which is the digitization of land records through GIS mapping. Now, this might seem a little technical. How does it matter? Actually, it's critical in an economy like India, where land registry does not exist at this point in time. And therefore, there's a lot of dispute over property ownerships and also, can assets be used as collateral for credit, things like that. This is a big deal. And this is one of the most significant reforms introduced in this budget. So you're going to have a land registry record based on GIS mapping. So that's your digital bit coming up. A sector of your choice? Yeah, definitely. Infrastructure where huge amount is allocated. And infrastructure allocation will not only boost that sector itself, but it will boost almost the entire economic growth. I will. Because any infrastructure, in US it was asked that why US is rich. Because US is rich, we have good roads. They say no, because we have good roads, US is rich. So we must have good infrastructure in good coastal uh, ways, good airports, good roads, railways. I will give you one example of from the interim budget that will give you the idea of what exactly the by 2047. And that was what is the dream of Prime Minister of India also. Now, to that, moving to that extent or to that area, in the interim budget, finance minister said we are really making 40,000 Vande Bharat type coaches. One question was asked by one of the person that you need to say that you will have so many Vande Bharat trains, but actually the cost of that Vande Bharat ticket is very high, and we have many people who cannot afford. She said, no, we are making a mistake. So what we are planning that if we invest to the Vikasit Bharat, all our trains, passenger, mail passengers, even express trains will have all our trains will have Vande Bharat type coaches with that quality and that all that thing. So that is what our dream is. And that what we are planning in the next 6 years, at least 10,000 coaches will manufacture. Of course, 25 years are there for 2047. But next 6 years, we are planning at least 10,000 coaches. So this shows the government intent actually to move towards Vikasit Bharat. And for that, if that happens, not only it will benefit to those passengers, definitely, but benefit to those who are manufacturing such courses, employment generation will be obvious. And when the actual such type of train will of course run, it will be the ease for us to travel by in a train, no? Which have all trains will have Vande Bharat type of coaches. So this is one example. Infrastructure is, to my knowledge, it will be the best benefited by the budget provisions, which are already discussed in the interim budget. In the final this full budget, she reiterated that yes, that we will continue with the same path. Actually, we were expecting some additional allocation of 10-12%, but that has not happened. More after 6 months, the next budget is due. Probably more for the infrastructure, considering the finance available with the government. More allocation will be made for infrastructure. So infrastructure, the best government has done in the budget, in the earlier budget, to boost to the economy and of course to the that sector itself.
Yeah, I think he has a point to make as well.
Before Rahulji opens the questions to you, I have one question to you, Mr. Rahul. Okay, one small question to him because he comes from agri sector. He is asking us the question, so one question आपसे बनता है. Okay, so one question that I would like to ask regarding the natural farming, organic farming. There are provisions that are coming up and digital survey of land. Your comments on that, please.
Well, I think the entire agriculture sector had, few provisions that were very, very far-reaching. In terms of digital land, definitely, like was mentioned by Ashraf as well, it will definitely make the ownership of land, and therefore on the demand and the supply side of land, there will be positive impact in terms of digital land records. What it also is going to help is in the entire insurance, farmer insurance schemes, because the moment land is digitized and there is definite boundaries that are set and therefore parameters set in terms of what are the farm insurance metrics that can be applied. I think it will have a benefit not only on the land availability, on the demand and supply and ownership of land, but also in case of de-risking by means of farm insurance. Today there will be a much more certain way of actually assessing that particular land because of digitized records. So I think there's an impact on the de-risking and ownership. In terms of natural farming, I think it's a utopian dream. Sri Lanka has borne the brunt of going natural overnight, and it was almost a famine situation for them where they couldn't feed their own people. What we advocate, and I am in fact on the Prime Minister's panel for doubling farm income, we have made residue-free farming as a prerogative and not natural farming, because there can be ways of supplementing artificially as long as you and I don't eat anything which is laden with harmful residue. I think that serves the purpose and is more practical rather than the utopian natural farming sort of lexicon, which is very sexy in what it says but really doesn't deliver productivity.
Yeah. Can I just follow up with the second question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Sri Lanka had to actually revert back to the other regular farming methods. So this is interesting what you said about insurance, crop insurance. And is this the reason the lack of land records and defined boundaries of farms? Is that the reason why the Fasal Bima Yojana, PM Fasal Bima Yojana actually benefits very few farmers? The numbers that I'm reading are that of the 14.57 crore farmers that it should benefit, actually 3.12 crore farmers are actually eligible. Is that what's happening? Well, I think they're now sort of turning tables on me, but yeah, I think it's interesting to know. But yes, as far as the farm records are concerned, most certainly there is a lack of certainty on the boundaries of land. Also, I think one of the key elements is what are the standards by which productivity is measured is also uncertain. So right now, like we are DGCA certified drone manufacturers. A lot of drones are today used in imaging tech. And that imaging, in fact, if any of you are interested in imaging, AI and ML-based solutions and IoT solutions in agribusiness, I think one of the biggest areas to look at is insurance, because a lot of drones are going out to digitize records. They actually then assess the quality of productivity, the quality of harvests in various parts of a particular district or village, and therefore pin code-wise standards are set. The lack of standards of what should be an acre of tomato yielding is a question. So if I say I have had a bad tomato harvest, what am I measuring it against? Now, when there is a lack of a standard, how will an insurance surveyor actually say whether you've had a bad output or not? So the lack of standard or lack of sort of boundaries for land records, because I say I own that land, but tomorrow there's a dispute on the title, whom do I pay out that money to? So I think these are the two areas, but yes, it's a growing area and it's definitely getting a much more standardized. And drones are one of the biggest ways of actually getting live action data availability for these areas. Yeah. Great. I think a point which was not mentioned by many of us, I definitely want to say that before we move on, is another important provision in many of these norms was decriminalization of many of the disputes. I think a lot of ease of doing business was talked about, but one of the ways
the fear psychosis of doing business can be removed is the fact that everything, any mistake you make is not a criminal offense. And I think a lot of laws have actually got decriminalized. And I think that's a very positive step as well. And I definitely wanted to put that point out there before we open it up for questions. So any questions from the audience? And if you don't ask, I will ask you, so you can decide. So you'll know if all of you, have actually listened to what we've said. So questions, please. Usually one person needs to start, and then the entire flow starts. So who's going to start? You're asking the first question?
No, we will be announcing to them.
For the names.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
Thank you so much to all our speakers for such an engaging and insightful discussion. And we will now open the floor for Q&A session. And we could only take a few questions, permitting time. So we will read out the names from the audience whose questions were submitted to us. We request our volunteers to provide the mic in the audience. So the first question is from Aboli Fendar.
Can they also say whom they're addressing it to, so it's just easier for us to answer?
Yes, please address the guest you are asking the question to.
Perfect. So I think they're going on.
Hello everyone. I would like to ask to Sanjeev sir, my question is, what are the potential economic benefit related to increase in capital expenditure to rupees 11.11 crore?
Yeah, that is what I was referring to. When a government spends money, somebody is earning. वो 11 लाख करोड़ जो है वो जो भी है गवर्नमेंट का स्पेंडिंग होगा तो somebody will be earning. That somebody अगर इंडिया में है इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्टर है तो who will be employing some laborers. Correct. So that will give like an impetus. Private investment is missing in India or less. So government has to spend. That is first thing. Second, by spending the money for all the infra project, the facilities will be available. Road will be available. Coastal road will be available. Airports will be available. So that availability itself is required for further economic growth. I remember one of my clients said he was to go to Kolhapur and it was no 5 hours were required. Since the train is available, airport is available, it's half an hour of 45 minutes. And you can go in the morning and come by afternoon after a meeting, business meet. So infra spending is necessary for every government that will boost the economy. See, I give a simple example. Suppose government spends 1 lakh rupees, correct?
Yes.
That will be income of somebody. He will not keep that 1 lakh in a drawer. He will spend it. So when he spend, government will get GST. Again, come back. Then he earns profit. Government will get income tax. And with this money, whatever he will generate an employment. And that employee will get some money. He will not keep that money in a drawer. He will also spend. So that will be a spiral effect in the economic growth. So government spending at one point, it will be useful for creating a facility, infrastructure, and giving the money to the. See what Rahulji said that during COVID, Western countries distributed money, and that backfired in the form of inflation in UK and some European country. In India, we give loans, easy loans. With the loans, machinery was bought, production was started, and the interest was hardly 3-4%. With this production, more laborers are employed. So infra expenditure is a must for every economy, and that has been given utmost importance by the budget. That is the best part of budget.
Thank you.
Our second question is from Sejal Kamble.
Good evening. I just wanted to know about the key initiatives for SMEs, if there are any in the budget, but I'm sure we discussed about the Mudra Yojana already, but if there are any few.
On SMEs, anything further?
Yeah, I think we've actually covered quite a bit. I think the Mudra loan credit limit is significant.
I think the credit guarantee scheme is extremely significant, and also all the employer and employee benefits for first time employees. All of that is extremely important. So all of these things would actually help MSMEs quite significantly.
The third question is from Satajul Haq.
Good evening. Government has increased the security transaction tax. We did talk about the capital gains and short-term gains, but we didn't talk about the STT. So I wanted to ask Mr. Sanjeev sir
Yes.
that instead of other measure like increasing the lot size to discourage FNO traders, like what will be the impact on investments now?
No, actually, the SEBI had one survey where SEBI said that 90% of those who are in FM will make a loss.
Yeah.
And recently they had survey in the sector. They say a lot of 60% will make a loss. If that is the case, it is always better to go for a long-term investment rather than going for FM. FM, to my knowledge, for what I believe is the only hedging instrument for mutual funds. But people take it as like a casino, and that is wrong. The clients, I have been filing returns for number of clients, more than 1,000 returns I filed. Those who at least 10% are in FNO, and out of 10 they are making losses. So जसं आपल्याकडे होतं ना, 1,000 रुपये का गळती एसटी दाखवा आणि 1,000 रुपये कमवा, तसा प्रॉफिट एफएनओ मध्ये केलेला दाखवा आणि 1,000 रुपये आताच द्यायला तयार आहे त्या माणसाला. त्यांनी मला earned money in FNO. So discouraging FNO for ordinary retail investor, of course, by imposing STT, I don't think that will be much help, but that is actually some money to the government. STT when it came into government was in place of a capital gain for shares, was replacing the capital gain. Capital gain was eaten from 2004 to 31st March 2018. So STT, but now what they have done, they have introduced a capital gain 10% in earlier days and again kept the STT in the law. So actually STT should have been removed by 2018. But for FNO, just to discourage, but that is a clear message from the government that we want to discourage FNO for a retail, because it's not the transactions are manifold now. Yeah. And therefore probably a small increase, small means it's a double likely one. So the increase is necessary to curtail. But I don't think personally that will help much. Yeah. Unless you educate your investor that FNO, don't do FNO. If you want to earn money, after that FNO creates एक मस्ती आ जाता है इसमें. और मस्ती चाहिए तो डेफिनेटली इट्स लाइक एनी अदर एडिक्शन एंड लाइक एवरीडे एक्सपायरी और 9:15 बजे वो 9:15 और एक्सपायरी गुरुवार का याद रखना है. गुरुवार को it's everyday expiry. It's an addiction rather than earning. Earning money can be the best by long-term investing. Yeah, but people don't want to go to उसका एक नशा है तो सट्टा भी एक नशा है और कुछ नहीं. Thank you, sir. हाँ तो लगता है. So I would say keep away. If you really want to make a money with a long-term investment in mutual fund or equity fund or in shares, good company share, that will give you huge amount, huge wealth. Yes, remember the words of Mr. Warren Buffett. Yes. These derivatives are weapons of mass financial destruction. Thank you, sir.
Our next question is from Siddhant Mandpe.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Siddhant, and my question was again for Sir, Mr. Sanjeev, sir. Under this new tax regime, what will be the impact on disposable income of the normal taxpayers?
Yeah, that's a good question because earlier old tax regime, I give a comparison. Old tax regime, if you are on 15 lakhs rupees, you have to pay like 62,000 as a tax. To save the tax, you can put some investment, tax saving even today is possible, even after budget is possible, old regime has not been abolished. So for reducing the tax, you have to invest, tax saving investment. Now under new regime, the same 15 lakhs now, after budget will have 1,40,000 tax. Tax 62 and 140, what's the difference? So if I want to, if I'm on old regime and want to pay that much tax, how much? As like old new regime tax, I will have to invest 4 lakhs rupees. And that for all PPF, LIC, all long term.
by one school which says that it is better that you tell them to invest for 4 lakhs, pay 1 lakh 40,000, so that in latter in today's investment will later pay them. Correct, and there is no social security as Ashraf said. So ultimately, it will be benefiting us. But what about consumption? As somebody said, no, we are moving towards consumption-oriented industry or country. So from that angle, the government says out of 15 lakhs, pay 140. So at your disposal, 13 lakhs something, 60, you invest, you spend, whatever you do. So we are not minding your investment. मतलब आपके हाथ पैर बांध नहीं रहे कि ये इन्वेस्टमेंट करो. आपकी इन्वेस्टमेंट आपकी मर्जी के खिलाफ, मर्जी के जैसे आप कर सकते हो by paying the tax first. So new regime, first pay the tax, then invest, spend. Old regime, first invest, save the tax. So under the old regime, the taxes are same, 140 and 140. But here, more liberty to invest where you want, as per your life cycle. So from that angle, new regime is much better. And of course, simple, very simple calculation. 15 lakhs slabs, direct calculation. Earlier, this deduction, that deduction, available, not available, and that too people's taxpayers started taking deductions even though without investment, because online form, nothing is to be attached. So huge fraud happened. Investments were not made, deductions were claimed, refunds were claimed. One fine morning, department came to know that people are being given refund without investment. So then open up the cases and litigations and so simplicity. Again, I come to the same point, to make the law simple. This is necessary, and that will have no impact as far as the people are paying taxes, because at such they would have saved that. Correct. Rather, they will need not have to save money. They will pay tax, and the disposable income will be at their own interest. They can put wherever they want.
Thank you so much, sir.
Another question that we have is from me. I read an opinion that said that instead of importing from China, we should start. There was, to an extent, we allowed an investment in our companies from China, and now we should increase that investment. So that way, when the West is also trying to look for other alternatives instead of China, so we could be a mediator, that we could import from China and we can export it to the other Western countries. So what do you think is the better one? We should import it, or we should let them invest in our, which one is the better one?
Well, I think we're talking about import substitution.
Yes.
Right. So import substitution, definitely, like was said earlier, anything you get from abroad takes forex out of the country. I mean, I have for 55 years, we very proudly say we're a made in India multinational, because we have manufactured in India from day one, and we continue to have zero dependence on the Chinese imports. In fact, until about 10 years ago, we used to also import a lot of material from China. Over the course of time, we have managed to repurpose and redesign products and services to make them completely in India. Now, I think this is true of many companies. I'm sure many of you are aware, almost 90% of Boeing's components go out of India, right? And they're all made by MSMEs. Okay, so it just shows the power of Indian manufacturing. So my own company, and we're a mid-sized company, we are not, but we are an Indian-born multinational. If we can do it, the others can to change import substitution. However, what is required? One, investment in infrastructure to make the movement of goods to the ports for export or to other parts of the country viable. Okay, I think infrastructure is the key to make sure that jahan bhi aap banao, maal pahunch jayega within acceptable freight rates. The second is upskilling. Yes, you want manufacturing, but if you are going to focus on unskilled labor, it's not going to work. So mechanization, upskilling, and infrastructure for delivery and logistics. I think if these are put in place, and I think all of them have been put in place one after the other, there is no reason why Indian companies cannot be the manufacturers of the world. And we are. And we are a great sweet spot because we are trusted. China is not trusted, right? And no one else has the economies of scale apart from us other than China. And if China is an untrustworthy partner, which today has weaponized a lot of its exports, right? Because they say, अगर आपको ये माल चाहिए, मैं आपका freight, मैं आपका container रोक दूंगा जब तक आप China को कुछ in return politically नहीं देंगे. Okay, so basically, China has weaponized a lot of its exports to gain from the current opportunity, that opportunistic way of doing things. So they are not trusted anymore. India has economies of scale and is trusted as a quality global partner. And if you deal with these three things, why there's no reason why India cannot manufacture for the rest of the world. Yeah.
So, I mean, the one industry which is already doing what you are saying, which is taking an input from China, processing it here into a product and then exporting it, is pharmaceuticals. So, I don't know if people here are aware that the vast majority of the raw materials for our pharmaceuticals manufactured here come from China. We are extremely dependent on raw materials for the pharmaceutical industry on China. Having said that, we take those raw materials, and I don't know whether everybody is aware that India is the largest manufacturer of vaccines in the world. And those vaccines are used everywhere in the world. So we export them. So we take those raw materials everywhere, we process them, and then we convert them to vaccines and sell them across the world. So that industry is already doing it. Your question.
Now, thank you for all your questions and to our panelists for their answers. I would now like to invite Mr. Harsh Mittal, General Manager Marketing, for the thank you note. So, please.
I'm sure there are a lot of questions, and I'm sure the discussion has been extremely engrossing, very, very insightful, very interesting. Um, as I have to do the customary thank you note, as we come to the end of the session, I would take this opportunity to thank our esteemed guest speakers, Dr. Rahul Mirchandani, Mr. Sanjeev Gokhale, Mr. Ashraf Engineer, and Anand Sakle. I think they have made valuable time. They're all busy people. They have made that valuable time to come here and talk to us. So a great thanks to all of you. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to our management, our Director VDT, Milind Talwarkar sir, our COO, VIT and Dean of Vidyalankar School of Management, Dr. Amit Oak, and all our esteemed principals and vice principals of VIT, VSIT, and VPT institutes. Your leadership and support were instrumental in making this event a grand success. So I thank all of you. I would also like to thank the faculty and students who attended the event today for your active participation and enthusiasm. I'm sure you can reach out with more questions if you have to our faculty. We will send these questions to our panel speakers, and I'm sure they will be more than happy to answer them. Finally, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the organizing and support team. I think they always work behind the scenes tirelessly. And I think the smooth running of the event, is something that is the backbone, the technical team, people on the console, people behind the scenes. So thank you, everyone. Sirs, we are looking for a lot more collaborations. We are looking for a lot more interesting events. We're looking for a lot more perspectives. Uh, this is mainly to ensure that we foster kind of growth and learning within our institutes. So that is the main objective. So thanking everyone. Thank you so much.
I would now request all to rise for the national anthem.
Thank you. Hang on. Thank you, sir. Within time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Can I have a photo with everyone? Yes.
Sir? Please come in a second. No, no, wait, wait. This picture. Come there? Yeah. One side. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, you just, yes. Come, sir. Come, guys, come quickly, quickly. Go that side. Some of you can go that side. Yeah, okay. Hi. Some of you can also sit. Why don't you sit down actually? That will be better. Aajo, aajo. Yeah.
सर आप बीच में आ जाओ.
Please tell us when you are ready. Sunil, backdrop.
Thank you.
Hi, Varsha. No, no. I just.
Yeah, exactly.
Anand Sakare. Anand Sakare.